This video is brought to you by Dr. Kristen R. Bromley's Guitar Method Book Series and Online Music Academy.
Hi, I'm Dr. Kristen Bromley. Welcome to my online academy. It's so great being here helping you with playing the guitar. It's a Theory Thursday, so we got some fretboard theory to go over in this lesson. For this specific lesson, this is part 6 of sort of several of these that have been about how we play the major scale along the neck. So in these movable shapes that have no open strings that we can just move and play in lots of different keys and lots of different positions. So let's go ahead and dive in. This part 6 is really sort of a summary that brings it all together with what I consider to be the very best way to look at and do the major scale on the fretboard. And I don't take that lightly. That's after over 20 years of teaching, thousands of students, and also all of the playing that I do as an artist. I have explored so many different ways of looking at the major scale along the fretboard, and I think this opens it up, and it is definitely the very best way. So let's go ahead and just review and look at everything that we've done and how it all fits together in this sort of summary lesson. If this is the first one you're looking at, you're probably going to want to check out the previous 5 because they're going to go a little bit more detail, and I'm going to run through things a little bit fast here. But I want to go through and just bring it all together, so let's go ahead and do that. In part 1, we talked about a scale form, a single octave scale form, and I had just one string set of that. By string set, we mean a group of strings that we play something on. So these low strings, 4, 5, and 6, create a string set for this one. And scale form 1 that I've got up there, and I'm just going to do it with my middle finger on G, which is at the 3rd fret of the 6th string. We go 2, 4, 1, 2, 4, 1, 3, 4. Now in part 1, we also looked at how we can take that form and transfer it to other string sets. So if I move the root to the 5th string, I can play it there. If we move that root on up to the 4th string, I can play it there. I got to shift up by a fret when I get to the 2nd string. And we can go on up to the 3rd string and play it there. I also have to shift up when I get to that 2nd string. The tuning difference between the 3rd and 2nd string versus the other strings that sit next to each other makes it so I always have to shift up by a fret when I get there when I'm doing the ascending scales. So that's those, and of course I didn't mention this necessarily in that first part 1 of the major scale, but you can actually do pieces of it. So if I move the root to the 2nd string, I just have a piece of it, and if I move the root to the top string, I also just have a piece of it. And so there we are with form 1. We looked at an alternate form in part 3. So in part 3, if I put my pinky finger on the 6th fret at the 6th string at the 5th fret, I'm in the key of A, and I'm going to look at form number 2 here. So I go 4, 1, 3, 4, 1, 3, shift down, 1, 2, shift back up, and I've got an alternate scale form, or form 2, and I can transfer this to other string sets. So I can put my pinky finger on the 5th string at the 5th fret and play it here. Of course, I don't have to shift with this one because everything on that 2nd string is 1 fret higher. And then I can put my pinky up all the way onto the 4th string, and I can play it from there. And if I continue up, I actually have a partial I can do just up to step 6. If I put my root on the 3rd string, and if I put my root up on the 2nd string, and I moved it up to the 6th fret, I can do a partial there. If I move the root onto the top string, I just have 1 note. Now I didn't do this with either of these, but if I go back to scale form 1, I was looking at where we start, but we can actually come lower if we were to play the scale in reverse. So starting from the pinky, I can move my pinky down to the 5th fret, or 5th fret of the 5th string, and I can play just a partial there in descending fashion. So I don't have the low root, but I do have just a piece of it on the descending fashion. And then on the low 6th string, I actually have a piece of it. With this other one, if I move my scale, so at the 5th fret there, and I actually moved the root up to the 6th string, and that's okay. If I move that where my middle finger's on the 3rd fret of the 4th string, I can descend through part of that scale as well. I just don't have that low root, and I can bring that down to the 5th string. And then if I bring that down one more, I just have that piece there. Okay, so that's the single octave forms. In part 2, we looked at how you can actually shift from this one right on up the neck and connect it to itself in multiple ways. You could actually do that with scale form 2 as well. Ironically, when we do, we tend to move further down the neck as we go higher, which is kind of an interesting thing. So, once we got through scale forms 1 and 2, we got to part 4, we started looking at how we can combine these two forms together to fill out all the notes in a given position. And we end up with 5 positional forms that cover the entire fretboard. So in part 4, we looked at 3 of those forms that start with this scale form 1 first. And then in part 5, the last lesson, we looked at 2 that start with scale form 2 first. So we went through all 5 forms and I've covered those deeply there. Here what I have that's different up on the board is actually how they sit next to each other and even overlap with each other on the guitar. So I've got, this would be with our scale form 1 on bottom, and then we get to this root and it overlaps with one that has that scale form 1 starting on string 4. And then you get scale form 1 starting on string 2, but we just have a partial, scale form 2 starting with our pinky. And then with the next one, we're back to scale form 1 as our lowest option with our middle finger starting. And then we have the last one here where we have our scale form 1 on the high part, but scale form 2 down there on the low part. And then actually, if we use our middle finger here, we would circle right back to this one. So I'm going to show us how this works with the key of G, how they kind of move next to each other. So starting with this first one, if I put my middle finger at the 3rd fret, I'm in the key of G, and I can play that scale form 1. I should mention a lot in parts 1 through 5, the orientation of these matched tablature for like reading notes. The orientation here to fit it on the board has them like guitar tablature for chords, and so it's matching the neck as though it was vertical like that. So with this first one, we've got scale form 1, and then we switch to scale form 2 to continue. And then we have a piece of scale form 1 on top, coming back down with scale form 2, back down with scale form 1, and then just a little piece of scale form 2 on bottom. So that's how the first one is. Then, to get to the next one, we go to the higher root, put our middle finger there, and we play scale form 1. So this is, my middle finger is on the 4th string at the 5th fret. And so I play scale form 1, that little shift, and then scale form 2, up to step 4, then we come back, scale form 1, switch to scale form 2 just for the piece of it, and then we're back up to that root. So that's how that one works. And as we're moving through improvising or playing melodies, we can be moving in between all of these constantly. Some of the music that we play will take us higher, will take us lower, depending on the keys that we're in, or we might be switching major scales because we're switching keys, or we're matching a particular chord and we need a particular fingering in the area that we're in, the position that we're in. So we end up using all of them, and we just shift between them. So these two are kind of easy to see because of that connection of moving to the root, and how we looked at with scale form 1, how we can connect it to itself. That's how I see that one. Okay, so for this next one, our middle finger then is up on the G, so index to pinky, we're 3 frets higher. My middle finger's on the 8th fret of the 2nd string, and I do have that little piece of scale form 1. But if I grab down with my pinky to the lower root, I can start with scale form 2, and my pinky's at the 10th fret on the 5th string, and I play scale form 2, switch to scale form 1, just the piece of it. Then we come back down with scale form 2. Then we have a piece of scale form 1 on the bottom. So that's how that one works. Then it's really easy. Where our pinky was is where our middle finger is going to go. And we are at the 10th fret now. Middle finger at the 10th fret. And we play scale form 1 first, and we actually only have that entire single octave with scale form 1. But we play scale form 1, so my middle finger's at the 10th fret, 5th string, and I play scale form 1, switch to scale form 2, just up to step 6, come back down, scale form 1, we're going to switch to just a piece of scale form 2 there on the bottom. You can finger these in different ways. I haven't gotten much into the fingerings, but I usually try to learn all the fingerings that work comfortably, because depending on the music that we're playing or for improvising, some may work better at one particular point in the music and another one may work better in another place. So it just depends on sort of the circumstances. So from there then, I've got my pinky on this higher root, and my index or middle finger could go there and play scale form 1 on top. If I put my index finger here, I can reach with my pinky to the 15th fret with that G. It's at the 15th fret on the 6th string, and I play that scale form there, starting with scale form 2, switch to scale form 1, come back down, switch back to scale form 2, just a piece of scale form 1 on the bottom, and there we are. Now, as I get to that point with my pinky, if I switch to my middle finger, I'm right back to where we started. My middle finger is on the G at the 15th fret, and I go 2, 4, starting right there with scale form 1, switching to scale form 2, got a piece of that up there, coming back down. And there we are with how these sit next to each other. Now down the road on a Theory Thursday, we'll get into pentatonic scales. There's actually a complete overlap with the pentatonic scales on these exact scales. Pentatonic scales have 5 notes. So if we take like a major pentatonic or a minor pentatonic, we're going to find 5 notes that come straight out of these forms. And we'll have the pentatonic scales just with a complete overlap, which is actually pretty cool, because a lot of the blues and pop and rock songs that we're improvising in, we like to use pentatonic scales. So this opens up the neck in so many incredible ways. How do we practice this? How does it help us? Well, I find it really useful to practice just the single octaves one at a time. Ascending up, if you've seen the Technique Tuesday, if you see the Technique Tuesday tidbit sort of lessons, sometimes I talk about ways to develop the hands and work on major scales for that. But going up chromatically, one form at a time, is really great. Once you kind of have forms down, you can go up with a root on the 6th string, go up and then come down with one that has a root on the 5th string. I like to keep them in the same vein, so the ones that start with scale form 1, I kind of skip to those ones and then do the ones that start with scale form 2, or vice versa. You can also move around the circle of fourths, which is something we're going to learn about in the next lesson, because we're going to work with the first position scales, major scales, and start looking at the actual notes of the key, which we will use the circle of fourths to help us understand, so we can start learning the notes and how to play those down in first position. So you might be wondering, well, how do I actually memorize where the notes are along the fretboard? The Note Reading Book 3 book, that's part of my method book series, uses this exact scale system to help you learn to read notes all along the fretboard. That was the way that I memorized it the most. Otherwise, I didn't necessarily know the notes. Now you can find them on the low 6th string and then just use intervals to find where they are as you move higher, and we're going to talk about intervals in future Theory Thursday lessons. But reading notes, just working through music, I had to memorize where the notes were within the scale system. The scale system opened up my ability to read all along the neck, But it also, while working in that, I started to memorize where the notes were. So that's the very best way that I know of that works for me and has worked for a lot of my in-person students, is to actually use the scale system to read notes. So that's just a suggestion there. Note Reading Book 3 in the Method Book series has video lessons and lots of exercises, and systematically takes you through memorizing where the notes are located using this scale system. So that's an option there. You can also just try reading with it. So this is pretty cool stuff. Of course, improvisation and lots of different things that may use this. So I hope you're having fun. I sure love fretboard theory. I guess I would have had to have gotten into the guitar as far and as deep as I have. But from all the different scale systems that I looked at, the day that I was just sitting around trying to figure out a simpler way, and I figured this out and just saw how it all fits together, was just like wow to me. So this is definitely the simplest, most profound way, the very best way to understand major scales on the fretboard. I have never seen a better way. I know of no better way, and I've explored a lot as a student, as a musician that works as a guitarist. So hope you enjoy that, the fretboard secret of the major scale. I'll see you hopefully in our next Theory Thursday lesson, where we're going to look at actual keys, the circle of force, and how we know what notes are in each key for the major scale. So it's going to be great. We'll see you then. We've also got our Technique Tidbit Tuesdays, and on Saturdays we got lessons that come out that are part of a new series. Right now it's flat picking. At least at the time of the shooting of this video, flat picking is coming out. So lots of cool things that we have going on the channel, and there's hundreds of other lessons as well that are there, that are part of different series that have already been completed. So lots of things to check out. Hope you're having fun with the guitar. Take care, and we'll see you again. If you found this video helpful, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. For more in-depth lessons and to progress through a free guitar course, check out my Guitar 101 series on YouTube and my Guitar Method books, which all come with access to hours of in-depth video lessons. You can find more information about me and my products at KristenBromley.com. Take care.